I remember one night a few years ago when I decided to take a road trip to a town I had never been to. I had this craving for adventure, and I was sure it would be thrilling to drive under the stars. It was around 10 p.m. when I pulled out of the city and the streets were practically empty. There's something eerie but also calming about driving late at night, don't you think? The world feels quieter, almost like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The first hour was peaceful, just the sound of the tires on the road and the occasional hum of the engine. As I drove deeper into the countryside, the lights from nearby towns faded away. I was on an unfamiliar stretch of road, and I began to notice how dark it was. The kind of dark where your headlights barely cut through it. And the trees lining the road seemed like shadows waiting to reach out. It was the kind of dark that made you second-guess every rustle in the bushes or flicker in the corner of your eye. You start to feel like you're the only one left in the world. Then, as I was driving through a particularly quiet stretch, my radio began to crackle, switching between stations for no reason. That's when things took a weird turn. Out of nowhere, a low fog began to creep across the road, thick and white, almost as if it was following me. It was the kind of fog you can't see through, not even with your headlights. I slowed down, feeling like something was off. I could barely make out the lines on the road anymore, and I had to focus harder than ever just to keep going straight. My mind started to play tricks on me. You know that feeling when you're not sure if you're being watched? Like something's out there just waiting for you to slip up? I wasn't alone, or at least it felt that way. After what felt like forever, I saw headlights in my rearview mirror, a car coming up behind me. It was a relief at first, like I wasn't the only soul on this road anymore. But then it happened. The car didn't pass. It stayed right behind me. I looked in the rearview, trying to make sense of the situation, but the headlights were too bright. It was as if the car was glued to my back bumper. A few minutes passed, and my nerves started to get the better of me. Should I pull over? Was I being followed? Then out of nowhere, the fog thickened even more, and the car vanished. Gone. Just like that. I checked the rearview again, but there was no sign of it. I was left in a complete, unnerving silence. My heart was racing, and for the first time on that trip, I questioned whether I should turn back. As I reached the town just before dawn, the fog began to lift. Everything looked normal again, but my hands were still shaking from the experience. I can't explain what happened that night. Maybe it was the isolation, the eeriness of the road, or maybe something else. But I'll never forget how it felt to drive through that night. It's the kind of adventure that sticks with you, no matter how much time passes.